Commissioners' court races don't usually get a lot of attention in races. We are changing that tonight, and it actually changed when the current commissioner for Precinct 3, Kevin Wolf, decided he wouldn't run for re-election. Since then, a lot of people have thrown their hats into the ring to become the new commissioner on the Commissioners' Court. Two of them will be on the ballot in October and November. What can be done for property tax relief, specifically for retired citizens on a fixed income, but even beyond that?
So the good thing about senior citizens, obviously, is their property taxes are frozen 65 plus. That doesn't mean they're not concerned about their children and their grandchildren. And I will tell you, Steve, I have made property taxes and appraisal reform a main or the number one part of my platform since I announced I was running for this office. When I've taken the campaign to the doorstep, when I talk about, and I kind of joke about a little bit, but it's not a joke. The number one issue in the precinct is property taxes, property taxes, property taxes. It's not enough for the county to brag about the fact that they've kept the tax rate flat, which they did again this year, when appraisals are going through the roof every single year. That is an effective tax increase. And the citizens of Precinct 3 understand that better than anybody because, like I said at the beginning of this conversation, Precinct 3 pays more than 40% of the entire property taxes in Bexar County. What does that mean? It means they want their fair share. It also means they don't want to be facing an increase every year. So one of the things that I've dug into is we need to look at appraisal reform. We need to look at the board of directors at the appraisal district being elected and not appointed, because it is comprised of primarily taxing entities. And so there's no incentive for them to really bring down those appraisals because they need that money. If we had an elected board, we would have better representation for the taxpayer. I want to be, since the county has a representative on that board, I want to be that voice for the taxpayer, but I'm going to need some help, which is why I want to get that board elected. However, we've got to go to the legislature to be able to do that. But we do have somebody who's willing to carry the water in Steve Allison, who's made appraisal reform a part of his legislative priorities. And so not only that, and just from a customer-driven standpoint, we've got to make the process of contesting your property taxes a lot more customer-friendly. The chief appraiser is really accountable to no one, and I am not a big proponent of unchecked power. And certainly when it comes to taxes, we've got to toe the line on that.
Christine Hortek, your response to either what Trish DeBerry just said or what you think can be done for property tax relief?
Well, the first point when I talk to people about their property tax bill, they're not happy about it. They're tired of the burden that it puts on them. But I think the first part of that discussion needs to be educating people on why their tax bill is so high. Yes, the commissioners do control some of the local tax rates, but they don't have anything to do with the appraisal values of our homes. That it belongs to the Bexar County Appraisal District. Now, they are a separate entity. They are a state agency, not county. And so I think it's a little bit misleading to tell voters for my opponent to say that she's going to go in and she's going to change how the appraisal board is conducted and how the appraiser his responsibilities or how he acts, because those things are controlled by state statute, by the Texas tax and local government codes. So in order to make those types of changes, you have to go to the legislature. That's outside of the scope of commissioners. So I'm not sure why she's telling people that. I don't know if it's a pandering issue, if she is doing this because she knows that people are desperate for relief and they'll do whatever they can to get it. Or I don't know, maybe she's not really aware of the complete scope of what the commissioners are able to do. And either one of those reasons, those aren't acceptable reasons, I think, to tell people what they want to hear, even if it's not possible to deliver on that.
Okay, I'm going to give Trish DeBerry the opportunity to answer that. But before I do that, what's your idea for property tax relief, Christine?
For property tax relief, I think, as you mentioned, seniors specifically, I think that's a matter of trying to expand on the property tax exemption for seniors. We want to make sure that seniors are able to stay in their homes long term. We don't want them worried about property taxes and having that dictate how they spend the best years of their life. So I think it's a matter of working with the legislature because we commissioners can't do it on their own. So it's a matter of working with our local representatives making sure that we inform our voters to the effect of how that happens. And that happens with our state representatives. And it's very important that they know that. That way they can make an educated choice when they're casting their vote, because they want to vote for people that are actually going to go to Austin and make the changes and fight for those of us here in Bexar County.
So I didn't hear a concrete plan there, though. I mean, give me an idea of exactly one thing that you would do that would reduce property taxes instead of just, we need to work with state legislators.
Well, in regard to tax exemptions, you asked about seniors. I think seniors are deserving of a higher exemption. Right now, we have the homestead exemption. We have exemptions for people with disabilities, and I think that that's something that we can work towards. We also need to make sure that those people that are represented on the appraisal board, that those people are knowledgeable. One of those representatives comes directly from Commissioner's Court, so we need to make sure that whoever represents the court on the appraisal board is up to task and is focused on doing the necessary means and measures to improve tax reform in Bexar County.
Thank you, Christine Hortek. All right, Trish DeBerry, I want to take up with you some of the points that Christine just made about the fact that the county commissioners cannot just decide we're going to elect members of the board or any of that thing. You have to have help. You mentioned Steve Allison. So how do you answer the fact that that's not really something that you can do just yourself as a county commissioner?
So my opponent just contradicted herself. She said we don't have to work with the legislature, and then when you asked her about senior citizens, she said, well, we've got to go to the legislature and we've got to be able to work with the legislature and make them aware of our concerns. Yes, one single county commissioner cannot make the difference, and it's a heavy lift, absolutely. But we've been talking the talk about appraisal reform for far too long and not walking the walk. And a lot of that deals with the fact that what she doesn't understand is the county does have a legislative agenda every year. And I think the benefit that we have on our side is that we have the election in November, and then we go into a special session in January. So we have an opportunity to be able to prioritize what that legislative agenda looks like. And I guarantee you, at the top of that legislative agenda is going to be working with Steve Allison and other members of the legislature to see that the board of directors at the Bexar County Appraisal District is elected and not appointed, so that there is better representation for the taxpayer.
Is there something you can do, though, as a county commissioner to lower?
What you can do as a county commissioner is you can cut the tax rate. So we got to take a look at that. So that means that's less revenue for the county. So we've got to take a very close look at what that budget looks like and what the impact would be. But that is what the Commissioner's Court can do.
Christine Hortek, I want to give you the last word on this issue before we move on.
Sure. When it comes to what commissioners can do, that is correct. Commissioners can cut the tax rate, but it's not going to make much of a difference. I know I ran my property taxes at a lower rate, at the lowest possible rate that Commissioner's Court was considering for this latest budget cycle. And when I ran my numbers, it made an $8 difference. And so I think the average Bexar County resident is going to see a difference of somewhere between $6 and $12 overall. So, I mean, as a commissioner, I would be willing to cut the tax rate because that would be something I could do. But in the long run, it's really not going to make that much of a difference to people's annual tax bill.